Hey guys, Gary Martin with RGG EDU. A few weeks ago, I was on the phone with Sandro, who's one of my favorite photographers, and we came up with an idea for us to go with him on one of his personal projects to Papua New Guinea, of all places. Now, if you don't know where Papua New Guinea is, it's just above Australia, and it's just on the right side of Indonesia. And Papua New Guinea is still truly one of the last explored places. They have over 800 languages, which is about a third of the world's languages spoken only there. And there's words like cannibalism, and tribes, a lot of warfare. It has the highest rape capital of the world. I've read some articles saying that it's one of the second most or third most dangerous countries in the entire world. And myself and another person from RGG EDU, Greg Arch, is going to be going there to make a documentary about Sandro shooting about 100 tribes, portraits of about 100 tribes. So for the last 2 weeks, we've been scrambling to get immunizations, pack, find the right gear. Now, here at RGG EDU, we film everything on Canon C100s. All the tutorials that we make, they're all shot on C100s, which are great cameras for kind of run and gun documentaries, anything from on the go. They're pretty lightweight by big camera standards, but those cameras in themselves are too big. So we've decided to go with the new Sony A7R2s, and that is the foundation of our kit, and we've built our entire kit around that. And we've had to rebuild all of our audio for the most part, all of our memory that we use to capture all this data. Behind the scenes cameras, we're not bringing Canon 5Ds, those are out of the question. So we chose the Sony system, the Sony A7R2, along with the Sony A7S for two reasons. Now, from all the reviews that I've read and from the little that I've actually used the Sony A7S, the Sony A7S still has much better capabilities in low light. Now, we'll miss out on shooting anything in 4K with the Sony A7S, but we're more important about getting the right exposure, not having a lot of grain. So let me take you through our kit, and I will start with one of the cameras. So the first one, and this is going to be our powerhouse, is the Sony A7R2. We're going to be shooting in its native codec at 4K, and one of the big differences for us in terms of production is we're not going to be shooting to the Atomos Ninja Blades. The Atomos Ninja Blades give us a really clean file that I love. It's uncompressed, it's 10-bit, it's ProRes 422. It's great for editing right out of the gate. A big difference is essentially we're going to be using Sony's essentially XAVC-HD codec, which I am not that familiar with, but one of the benefits of that is now we get to shoot everything on these tiny SD cards. Now, we could go with the Atomos Samurai, which allows us to record in the same method, uncompressed, to an external recorder, but that again is one more thing that we have to bring for batteries, one more thing that we have to worry about with cables, and one more external that's going to take up space in our bag. So we've decided to go without it. So we're going to be using 3 different cards, all from SanDisk. They're all the Extreme Pluses or the Extreme Pros, and we've got 3 different sizes, and we've got 20 cards of each. Now the first one is the Extreme Plus here, and we're using 128 gigabyte cards, and we have 20 of these. And these have a read-write speed of 80 megabytes per second. These are primarily going to be what we use for the A7Ss for photography and for their video. And then from there, we have 2 sizes of cards. And we've gotten almost all of this from lensrentals.com. It's simply not economical to purchase all this gear for a trip where we're only going to use the gear once. The second card we have is a 64 gigabyte card with the fastest read-write speed really that's available today. It's 280 megabytes per second, and this is what we're going to be primarily shooting a lot of the 4K on. Now, there's not a lot of information out about the capabilities of what the Sony A7R2 can do and what it can record to, but from the articles that I have found, we can also use these 256 gigabyte cards which are massive when you consider how big that is. Now this has a read-write speed of 90 megabytes per second. Now we've done a fair amount of testing and it's working and we like the quality of the footage, but we're not entirely sure. So we have 20 256 gigabyte cards. We have 20 128 gigabyte cards with a lower read-write speed. And then we have 20 of these 64 gigabyte cards with the fastest read-write speed at 280. So the second camera, and both of these kits are essentially identical. Greg is going to have a kit just like mine. And the second camera in my bag here is the Sony a7S. We've got both video capabilities at 4K and amazing image quality in a camera body that's this big. So we are going to two of the most dangerous cities in Papua New Guinea, highly densely populated. Port Moresby is where we're flying into, and then we're taking a second flight to Goroka. Now we don't know exactly what to expect when we get there, so we want to have as low of profile as possible. So we can hide these easily, put these in our coat pockets, even with a lens on them. I've gotten a jacket where I can just throw this in there. I can have it around my neck, tuck it under my coat. It's really amazing that the quality can come in something this small. So this was an obvious choice when we were looking at keeping essentially all of our stuff in one carry-on. All of our gear, all of our batteries, all of our backups, all of our memory, all of our duplicates of everything have to go in one bag. And those bags themselves are these f-stop gear bags. And what I love about these bags is we can build all of our kits in these ICUs. And these ICUs then essentially zip up and they can go in from the top here or from the top of the bag themselves, and then they zip up. So if we're on location and we need to quickly put our bag down and have all of our gear in it, with two zips, we have all of our gear accessible and we can be highly mobile. So we're going to be using two of these f-stop gear bags, and they essentially have the exact same kits in them. Now in terms of glass, we were pretty limited, and we weren't able to use the glass that we normally bring, which are Cine lenses or Canon L series glass, which if you've ever used the 85 millimeter or even the 70-200 are massively heavy lenses. They're beautiful, but they're really heavy. So another benefit to using Sony kits are using lenses that are great because they're made by Zeiss. They're branded with Sony, but they are Zeiss standards. So the first one we have is the 16-35. This is a lens that we use in Canon L series, and it's absolutely beautiful. Zeiss makes great glass, and they're pretty light. So the first one we're bringing is the f4 16-35. That's primarily going to be on my camera. I'm going to go for wider establishing shots. Greg's go-to lens is going to be the Sony 24-70, another great lens that we use on our kits during our productions. And it's roughly the same size, incredibly lightweight. This is both the f4, so Greg will be able to, from roughly my position, be able to get a little bit closer with medium shots on the subject, Sandro, which is who we're going to be documenting. Now for situations when we're in lower light, or for situations when we can do an interview with Sandro, we're going to switch lenses. And I have two other lenses in my bag. The first one, which I'm also going to try and use for portraits, and these are all by Rokinon. This is the 135 millimeter Cine lens. So with Cine lenses, we're able to get much more precise focusing. They're going to be sharper for the most part. They're going to be great for video interviews, and essentially a 135 millimeter lens at f2.2. It's going to be incredibly sharp and great for low light. So we'll see what this can do on this Sony a7S. Now, the second lens that I have in my kit is the 50 millimeter 1.5. Now this Cine lens, this is also a Cine lens, so you're able to focus quite a bit more when you turn the wheel compared to like a Sony L series glass. You're able to fine tune your focus and get a much sharper quality image from what we're used to with either Zeiss Cineprimes or Canon Cineprimes. Absolutely beautiful pieces of glass. And again, we got these from Lens Rentals as well. We do not own these lenses. So I'm gonna have two of those, and then Greg in his bag for his second lens is going to have the 85 millimeter, another Rokinon 1.5 T-stop. And this is another amazing lens that we're gonna use mostly for situations where we're not running and gunning. We don't have to move around a lot. With the Sonys, we're going to really test to see if you can do handhelds with the Sonys, because we're going to want to walk around like markets. We're going to want to be in public. We don't want to have a bunch of gear and tripods and anything that can bring a lot of attention to us. So for the most part, we want to stay wide at 16 or 24 when we're hand holding these, and really pushing the Sony new A7R2s and the internal stabilization that Sony's claiming that they can do. So we're going to see how that goes. We have a total of 20 batteries for the Sony cameras. They both use the same batteries, so the Sony A7R2s and the Sony A7Ss use the same batteries. So both Greg and I each have 10 batteries, and we each have 2 chargers. So if for whatever reason one of our bags gets stolen, we have another 2 chargers over here and another 10 batteries over here, and we'll be able to keep the production going. And hopefully we don't get robbed, or hopefully if we do get robbed, we can negotiate and get our stuff back, which apparently is what you do when you get robbed in Papua New Guinea. So we'll see what happens. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the backup from once we're shooting on these cards. We're not going to format them ever. So we are going to be using 2 different types of hard drives. Now the hard drives that I have in my bag are all these 1 terabyte G drives, ATC, the EV ATC, and we're using Thunderbolt connections. So the cable themselves are built into this enclosure, which I really like. And the enclosures themselves are pretty much shockproof and for the most part waterproof. So I don't plan on getting pushed in the water because there's a lot of crocodiles, but if I do, I know that at least our hard drives are going to be safe. So I have 3 of these in my bag, and then in Greg's bag we have similar drives, but they're a little bit different for a specific reason. Now we have 3 very similar drives from G Technologies, and these are USB 3 drives. And we wanted to change this up in case there was an issue with any of the adapters on our computer. So we have 3 USB 3 drives, and we have 3 Thunderbolt drives. And Thunderbolt and USB 3 are roughly the same speed. So when we're backing up footage, we'll take all the footage from my SD cards, and we'll copy that to all of Greg's drives. So now we'll have all the original copies on the SD in my bag, and a duplicate of what I've shot on Greg's hard drives. Now the same thing with Greg. Everything that Greg shoots on his SD cards at the end of the day or in the middle of the day will be copied onto my hard drives. So at the very end of the day, we'll have 2 copies of everything. Normally on productions, we always have 3 copies, and we're normally using things like RAID 0 for a lot faster transfer speeds. We're going to be using a computer that we normally don't use, and we got the 13-inch MacBook Pro. This is the brand new one, and I didn't get the MacBook Air because there was not 2 Thunderbolt connections on the MacBook Air. Now the MacBook Air 13 inches is about ½ a pound lighter, and I was able to say, you know what, it's worth it to have 2 USB 3 ports and 2 Thunderbolt ports on the side of this computer, and it has about a 10-hour battery. So from no matter where we're at, if we have to dump footage in the middle of the day or even review footage, we will be able to do that here. And that in itself goes into a little hidden case in my bag here as well. Now let's get into the audio that we're going to be using. Now normally we use the wireless kits from Rode. We will be trying to use that in addition to another shotgun mic. Now it's always good, everyone says audio is absolutely essential to have good quality audio. So in any production, you need to put as much emphasis into having good audio as possible. And we're going to be using 2 things. And again, my kit and Greg's kit are identical. So we have the Rode Link. These essentially replace Sennheiser's G3s, which we've used for years. And they're somewhat problematic, at least they have been for us. We get a lot of pops, a lot of interference. We've been using these for about 2 months now, and overall, I love them way better. They're easier to set up, the batteries last a lot longer, they auto pair and find the best channel. They're a dream. And they also come with these wind guards. And we've gotten these adapters to go to XLR. So this one will plug right into the top of the Sony, right into the side, and live in the hot shoe on top. And if we need to, we can plug it into the XLR adapter that we have for the shotgun mic, should we need to. Now for the shotgun mics, we are using these little Sony shotgun mics. We've rented these as well from Lens Rentals. They go right onto the top of the hot shoe on both the Sonys, and they have 2 XLR inputs here. So we're actually able to record to 2 channels, shotgun mics. So far in the last 2 days since we've had the gear, this is really amazing audio. So I'm not sure in what situations, if we're walking around, we want to get people that aren't mic'd up or don't feel comfortable being mic'd up, or we want to shoot something a little kind of clandestine. These are going to be a good option. So we're going to have these ready to go on probably the Sony a7Ss at all times, and always have Sandro hooked up to one of the Sony a7R IIs, and probably Greg or myself on the other RodeLink wireless mic at all times. And kind of the idea here, we're going to be there for roughly 10 days. And the idea is to really not stop filming. And we're going to be able to do that with this much amount of memory and with this much capabilities in terms of batteries. Now the batteries themselves are tiny, and we're able to get away with bringing 20 of these. If we were to bring, let's say, the Atomos Ninja recorders, they take those big Sony FP970s or whatever those are called, which are huge, huge, heavy batteries that take a long time to charge. These themselves, and I've shot with the old Sony a7R, and I was able to shoot almost all day long. So we're really going to put these to the test and see how long of a battery life we can get out of these. Now to go back to audio quickly, for situations where we might not want to film while we're doing audio, we might just want to capture the audio of maybe a song, or if we want to do an interview with 2 people and we don't want to get that audio bleed. We've found a lot of success with the Zoom H6. Now this is pretty standard. It's definitely not top of the line. This is something that we own, that's in our kit all the time. It's the H6 handy recorder. We're going to be able to get 4 different channels through the XLR on this and record 4 different audio channels at the same time. This is an amazing piece of technology. It's pretty lightweight. If we're in a situation where we might want to capture the audio in like a square, or there's a live performance and we don't want to, again, have the cameras out, I can easily have this in my jacket pocket and be getting the audio, which will then have a good audio library to use in post-production. Now there are some situations where we're not going to be able to get these cameras out. We're going to be traveling in trucks quite a bit from location to location, and I want to be able to get some good footage of time lapses of the roads. So with that, we're going with the GoPro. This is the Hero 4 4K. We're going to be using this with a couple different mounts. The first mount we have is for the car, and it's just the suction cup mount. They sell it everywhere that they sell GoPros. I'm hoping that we can put these on the car and get a decent amount of footage while traveling. Maybe on the plane, we'll be able to use this if we want to maybe like travel through a market and get a good perspective of us walking with the gear. We can also mount this onto one of our bags and get over the head perspectives. GoPros are great if you have a lot of the little accessories that they come with. We also have the chest strap, we have the head strap, we have a bag of all the accessories that you can use to then kind of grip this in weird places. So this is going to be a camera that we're going to rely on the audio from the H6, and this is going to be something that we're going to have to get creative with. We have 5 backup batteries for the GoPro, so we should be able to film all day long. We also have a little bit limited. We have 4 64 gigabyte micro SD cards. As the GoPros don't take SDs, they take the little tiny micro SDs, which I am fantastic at losing, and I've probably lost over a terabyte of those things in my day so far. So hopefully I'll be able to keep track of those micro SDs, and we can get good footage with the GoPro in 4K or even time lapses with the video. Now for tripods, we're bringing 2 tripods. The first one is this. It's the smallest tripod that we own. It's tiny, it's not too heavy. It's the Manfrotto 055XDB with a removable head. This goes nicely on the side of any one of our bags. It's not the lightest weight, it's not carbon fiber. I would like to bring something that's carbon fiber, but those tripods are essentially about $1,000 and I don't want to lose it. So we're going with a little bit of an older model tripod. It's pretty sturdy, and we're going to be bringing these MVM 500 heads. Normally we shoot everything on the 504 much bigger heads, but we're trying to pare everything down and get a lot smaller. Now Greg also has a tripod that's a lot smaller that you could easily put on a table or under a table and get a very low perspective from. And secondly, for our third stabilization is going to be our monopod. Now, if you've ever filmed in a car, you know that it can be pretty tight. I would like to do interviews with Sandro in the car, and a good tool for this is to mount your camera to it, stick it in the corner of the car, and you're able to get whoever's driving or even someone who you're next to. It's a little bit harder to do with a tripod, so that's why we're bringing the monopod, and also just to stay lightweight and to be able to kind of set up anywhere and just hold it and not rely on hand holding the actual device. So this is going to keep us a little more compact, and we're going to be able to be on the move quite a bit more. And essentially all of this fits into 2 of these f-stop gear bags. I'm using a little bit of a bigger one. This one's called the Shin, and we also have its smaller version, little brother, that's been out for a few years now. We've been using these bags everywhere. In addition to it being really handy, it's got pockets virtually everywhere, so we can hide stuff all over this bag and have a really organized and efficient workflow. Now, I think I've covered just about everything in our bags. Again, they're identical. Now, one thing that's making me extra nervous for a variety of reasons, and I've gone back and forth on whether or not this was a good idea, and I'm pretty sure it's not a good idea, but I'm going to risk it anyway. We're going to bring a drone, and we're going to bring one of the bigger drones on the market. It's the DJI Inspire. We've had this for about 4 months now. It produces amazing footage in 4K, and we're going to somewhere that really hasn't been explored. I wasn't able to find very much content that was well produced on this country, so we might be one of the very first people in this entire country to get some drone footage. So I'm worried about a couple things with this drone. One, I'm going to have to handhold this thing just about on every plane. I'm going to have to kind of negotiate and talk my way into getting this on the plane, which we've had to do on numerous occasions. 2, it also forces me to bring things like an iPhone or an iPad, which is going to then draw more attention to what we're doing. And then most importantly, this is a country full of tribes that have bows and arrows. And from what I've been told, any helicopters, real helicopters that get too close to a lot of these villages get shot at with bows and arrows. So I'm also worried about this coming back, the noise it's going to make, and the amount of people that are going to be freaked out about this devil drone flying above their village or over their head, and just what the hell it is. We're essentially going to a 40-year celebration from the independence of the Dutch, independence of the white man, and here I am going to be at the celebration flying the death drone above people's heads, and there's going to be 100 different tribes there. So I'm not sure if we're going to use it, even if we do get it into the country, but it's one of those things that, you know, it's going to be great if there is a situation, even if it's one situation, one scenario, if we're able to then use that, it's going to be amazing. So it'll be worth the risk. I definitely don't want to lose this either in customs. They might not let me bring this into the country, in which case I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's essentially a $4,000 investment considering the iPad that's with it, considering the extra batteries that we have in here. These batteries themselves last about 20 minutes of flight time. We got the extended TB48s. This should give us about 30 to 40 minutes of flight time per battery, and we have 3 of these. So we should be able to fly this at least twice a day with no problem. And again, we have those 64 gigabyte micro SD cards that go on the camera's gimbal head. So all of this essentially packs down into 2 bags plus the DJI case that it comes with. The case is nice that it is essentially a kind of a briefcase. It's protective. I still don't feel comfortable checking this, but if I'm in a situation where I get through security and I can hand give it to them at the gate if they don't let me on the plane, I'd then just take the camera out. I'd keep the camera with me on my person, And I'd feel somewhat comfortable checking this, but we'll see what happens. It might get broken before we even get there. Essentially everything else packs down into 2 carry-ons that we each have, and then Greg and I both have 2 small check-in bags that we're going to use for clothes. Now for the clothes that I'm bringing, we've essentially had to pare down and really decide how often we'd like to shower and kind of be clean and have fresh clothes on. And the answer is only a couple. So where we're going, we've been told not to bring a lot of clothes. So I'll quickly kind of give you the rundown of what we've been told and kind of how we're going to stay safe. So again, we got this call only a couple weeks ago. We went and got all of our immunizations, but one of the immunizations called Japanese encephalitis, which is carried by the mosquito, you need to have 30 days in between the first shot and the second shot. So my first shot was only given to me 2 weeks ago, so I am not even able to get my second shot. So Greg and I are both going to Papua New Guinea having only half the proper dosage of Japanese encephalitis. And if you look up Japanese encephalitis, if you're bitten by one of these, the chances of getting them are still small, but the results are either mental retardation or you die. So we obviously don't want to be getting bitten by mosquitoes, so I've gone a little overboard on staying safe here. So the first thing, which is essentially military grade, is called permethrin. You can get it at REI. I got one of these, and I've sprayed it on all of my clothes and all of my bags that I will be using. And I can leave this here because it lasts for up to 6 washes or 6 weeks. And this is going to be really essential to keeping the bugs off me. Now, throughout this video, you're probably going to only see me wearing this jacket. I'm going to try not to take it off. Right now in the southern hemisphere, it's winter going into spring. So it's not as hot as it would be if we were going in there summer, which is good. So we're going on the drier season, and we're going on somewhat of the cooler season. So it's going to be in the 70s to low 80s, and possibly dip down into the 60s at night. So I've completely soaked this guy. Super lightweight jacket, but super durable. It's got some hidden pockets on it, and I got it one size bigger, so I'm able to keep a camera kind of in the jacket itself, and it's not too tight. So I essentially have one jacket to keep me warm. I hope it doesn't get too cold. I'm essentially bringing 3 shirts. They're all long sleeve, they're all lightweight, and they're all, for the most part, odor resistant. You can check with someone like REI. There's certain fabrics like Woolite. So I'm going to be able to wear these 3 shirts throughout our 10-day trip. I'm probably only going to wash them once in the sink with Greg. And you're going to see us do a little bit of laundry, hopefully in the hotel rooms that we're at. From there, that's essentially all my clothes outside of 5 pairs of boxers and 5 pairs of socks. So I'm going to be doubling down on my boxers, and it's going to be dirty. All right. Next, we have, I'm not going to trust the hotels I'm staying in. They're kind of sketchy. I don't want to trust their pillows. I don't want to know what happened on that pillow before me. And I don't want to use any sheets. So I'm essentially bringing this as a lightweight sleeping bag, insect shield, and it has an inflatable pillow. I'm going to treat this like I'm going camping for 2 weeks, even though we're going to be staying at some hotels. I don't know what to expect, so I'm going to have those in my cocoon in the hotel. Now above the cocoon, you're going to see me set this guy up. This is a mosquito net, and it comes with little drills and kind of holes. So I'm going to basically, in every hotel, be drilling a hole above my bed, and I'm going to have an insect shield around me, kind of like a canopy. I'm going to be sleeping essentially in my shirts. I'm going to have a long pair of very lightweight pants I'm going to be sleeping in. And those are all the clothes that I'm bringing for a 2-week trip to Australia and to Papua New Guinea. From there, we want to stay absolutely safe in terms of our health. So we've taken some other precautions. Now, the biggest thing, if you've ever gotten sick from drinking bad water, it's terrible. I lived in the Republic of Moldova for 3 years, and I once purchased some bad water that looked like it was decent water, looked like it was made by the same manufacturer, but when I tasted it, it was a little off that night. I had real bad poisoning. I don't know what it was, but I was essentially bedridden. I had to be evac'd out to the capital, and I was essentially thought I was going to die for 4 days. So I don't want that to happen again. So 2 things. First is we're pumping everything. I'm gonna pump all the water that I buy that's already sealed. I'm gonna pump it. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if someone's bottling water from an actual tap or bottling water from a river and making it look like it is legit water. So we're gonna pump everything. Water pumps are about $100. If you're going anywhere, going camping, they're essential. From there, I'm gonna be drinking everything out of here. Now this is called the Life Straw. It's essentially an Nalgene that I'm gonna dump everything into here. There's a second water filtration system in there. In addition to that, as a backup and maybe as a tactic to be extra safe, I don't know if we're going to use this, but this is a backup in case maybe these get lost or stolen. We have iodine tablets. So essentially with an iodine tablet, if you don't have one of these, you can add these to your water, and in around an hour, a little bit longer than that, the water will be safe to drink. We also will be using this Jungle Juice insect repellent. Now this is 98% DEET, which basically burns your skin. It's recommended that you use no higher than 30% DEET, and we're going full on here and using 98% DEET. So I am gonna be a stinky individual, and I don't care because I don't wanna get bit by those mosquitoes and be miserable with mental retardation. From there, we have a couple complete bite sting kits. We have malaria medicine. We have medicine, anti-diuretic medicine that normally if you travel, if you eat something local, you're gonna get diarrhea. So when it happens, you wanna have some prescription grade stuff so you're not miserable. If one of us goes down, that's gonna suck. If both of us go down because we're sick, that's essentially gonna ruin the production. So we don't want that to happen. So we wanna take every precaution to not let that happen. From there, we just have sunscreen, backup DEET, 30% DEET in case this burns my skin off. We're gonna go with recommended 30% DEET, Tylenol, Visine, and then Greg has another first aid kit with a little bit additional contents in his bag as well. So that is our first aid kit. In addition to that, I have one hat, 2 pairs of these pants. Now these pants are essentially also from REI, very low profile. They have one hidden pocket, and they're gonna go great with my super sneaky belt. And the belt that we're using is essentially called a money belt. It's got a zipper on the inside, and I like these because you can fit a lot of SD cards and cash in here. So if we get robbed, I plan on having a wad of cash in my pocket that I can give away, and the majority of that in this belt. So hopefully you don't see me get robbed from my pants too, because then they're gonna get all the SD cards and all the money. So they're not getting my pants. You can have the cash in my pocket, but you can't have my pants. So that is essentially the entire clothing kit. Then we have one day bag, a smaller bag that we're gonna put cameras in, and we're bringing 20 of these meal bars. Now I went to REI and did a little research for the weight that these have in them. They have about 370, 360 calories, a lot of sugar, a lot of protein, a lot of carbohydrates. So we're gonna try and supplement our diet as much as possible, because eating local fruit, eating local vegetables, that all has the local water inside of it. So we don't wanna eat anything that hasn't been super cooked, and I anticipate with a lot of the hospitality that we're gonna be given, people are gonna want us to try a lot of their food. So I'm gonna try and go down to 2 meals a day, one of them being a meal that I've purchased and brought with me in these meal bars. And then hopefully the second meal that we can find is somewhat nutritious and it's not gonna make us sick. So between eating and drinking, we're essentially covered. Hopefully the food that we eat doesn't make us sick as well. So that is essentially it. That is the kit we're bringing. This kit should be able to be carried by 2 people onto a plane with, again, 1 check bag per person. I am leaving tomorrow to meet up with Greg in LA, which is where Greg lives. And from there, we're gonna have essentially an 18-hour flight to Sydney, where we're going to meet Torsten, who is our guide. Torsten Blackwood, he's an Australian photojournalist, well known in the country. He's been to Goroka and Papua New Guinea before. He's made about 15 trips to cover Papua New Guinea over the last 20 or so years, and is going to be our source for what not to do and what to do. So hopefully Torsten keeps us safe and all of our stuff not stolen. So that is essentially what's in our bag. Thank you so much for watching. Catch us on the next episode where we start the trip.